So today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to do a piece about how the left pushes propaganda and just how easy it is to spot and debunk, just with some common sense. So we're going to look at The Guardian, and yes, I know The Guardian has a bullseye the size of Rosie O'Donnell's ass, and it is nothing but propaganda, a leftist rag to be rocketed into orbit, never to be seen or heard from again, but it will serve a purpose for today. So here we have Robert Reich. Some background on Reich. He worked under both Clinton and Obama. He was Clinton's Secretary of Labor and served on Obama's Economic Transition Advisory Board. Currently, he is a professor at Berkeley, that liberal bastion of psychotic madmen. An economist, not a very good one, earns nearly $250,000 a year teaching there, $2,500 an hour for his lectures, $40,000 an hour for speaking fees. A net worth of nearly $5 million, but he's going to lecture us mere peasants on how politics works. Now, I'm going to remember him as the guy who tried to smear Ayn Rand and got his ass handed to him by Yaron Brook, and he tried to call Elon Musk a modern-day robber baron, and Musk called him a modern-day idiot. That's some good stuff right there, short and punchy. Now, the reason I don't like this guy is because he's one of these colossal morons who thinks the US is being controlled by an oligarchy. Now, I'm not going to disagree there isn't too much corporate influence in politics. There is. But the way to combat that is not to increase the size and power of the state, because doing so does not diminish the power of the corporations. It just means there is more power of the state to buy off. How anyone can think more government is the solution to any problems, especially given its track record of monumental cock-ups, is mind-blowing. The only people who want more government are the people who stand to gain from bigger government, i.e. either people who work in government or businesses who can use the power of the state to stifle rivaling competitors. But anyway, to the article. While Delta spreads, Republicans deflect and resort to Trump's demagoguery. See, even the headline doesn't make sense. I don't know how do your job, one of the functions of the state is to protect the citizens of the country, is seen as demagoguery. It's as simple as, are there people being imported by the federal government that carries the virus? Yes. Why? As America reaches the milestone of 70% of adults with at least one dose of a vaccine, the highly contagious Delta variant is surging. Public health officials are trying to keep the focus on the urgent need for more vaccinations. Okay, why? Look, even the CDC says vaccinations do not curb the spread. So you're pushing the vaccinations. Why? Even the federal government isn't mandating vaccines for illegals crossing the border. I think one can suspect that is the reason why. But with unvaccinated Americans, notably and conspicuously residents of states and counties that voted overwhelmingly for Trump in 2020, succumbing to the Delta strain in large numbers, Trump Republicans are falling back on their proven method of deflecting attention by blaming immigrants crossing the southern border. Okay. Note that opening line with unvaccinated Americans because it will come in handy at the end. The reason they're unvaccinated is because they aren't stupid and because they can see they are in no danger from COVID. And like many atypical red-blooded American, they are highly suspicious of anything pushed by the state. Especially when you psychos are not only pushing insanely draconian policies that would likely make the founding fathers shoot you at the drop of a hat, but you are also using data that contradicts itself every 48 fucking hours to do so. Last week, Trump issued a characteristic charge, ICYMI, thousands of COVID-positive migrants passing through Texas border city, linking a New York Post article claiming that nearly 7,000 immigrants who tested positive for COVID-19 have passed through a Texas city that has become the epicenter of the illegal immigration surge. Trump has employed this racist nationalist theme before. Okay, big moment right here. Notice he addresses nothing of what was said in the article. Like a cliched leftist, he goes for the emotional smear and ignores the reality of thousands of people flooding the southern border. Hey, Reich, you're supposedly an economist. Would you like to tell your readers, all 10 of them, how that impacts the lives of millions of Americans? Nope, of course not. He has a bullshit narrative to push. He began his 2016 campaign by charging that criminals, drug dealers, and rapists were surging across America's southern border, and then spent much of the subsequent 4 years trying to erect a fence to keep them out. Trump acolytes are adopting the same demagoguery. You ever notice no leftist ever talks about how thousands of migrants might affect the native population? Ever. But anyway, demagogues, really? Let's have a look at your former fucking bosses, shall we?
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens.
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. That's why over the past 6 years, deportations of criminals are up 80%. And that's why we're going to keep focusing enforcement resources on actual threats to our security.
Ah, would you look at that? They sound exactly like Trump. So, by your own logic, you used to work for demagogues, you hypocritical asshole. The difference between those two and Trump is Trump actually tried to follow through and enforce the damn border, like a good fucking president is supposed to. It is literally one of the few functions of the state that most sane people will agree on: defense of the citizens of the nation. Then he talks about Florida's big numbers and DeSantis beating the senile old wanker in charge for his porous fucking border policies. I went to go look at the numbers. Their case-to-death ratio is 0.8, literally less than a percentage. It's some of the best numbers in the damn country, so DeSantis won his opponent's 0. The Trumpist media is quickly falling in line behind this nativist rubbish. In the last week, Fox News' Sean Hannity has asserted the biggest super spreader is immigrants streaming over the southern border rather than the lack of vaccinations. Which is true, even by your own CDC's guidelines, for heaven's sakes. The National Review claims that Biden's border crisis is merging with his COVID crisis and asserts that the federal government is successfully terrifying people about COVID, while it is shrugging at the thousands of infectious illegal aliens who are coming into the country and spreading the virus. Again, true. Then we have a bunch of news pieces criticizing Biden for the same thing because it's obviously common sense and Biden isn't doing shit. Then he says, let's look at the actual data. It's spreading fastest in places away from the Mexican border, etc., etc. Funny that even the Department of Health and Human Services told Breitbart they were authorizing plane tickets and busing services for migrants all over the country in order to avoid the scene at the border, just like DeSantis said. So there's your explanation for your spread. Then he claims this website, GIS Aid, a non-profit organization, half the staff are connected to the World Health Organization it seems, but that's another story, that the Delta strain showed up in the US before it did in Southern America. Now let's look a little closer at the claim, shall we? Because unlike his dumbass followers, I'm not just going to look at him at face value, I'm actually going to look at the findings, so here's what I got. At the end of December last year was the first case in North America. Mid-February the following year was the first case in Southern America. Now, according to the source, you want to know how many outbreaks there were tracked from the North versus South in just that under 2.5 month time period? 15. So this massive surge produced 14 cases in just under 2.5 months, according to this source. 14 more cases in a country of around 330 million people. Then has the stupidity to claim, haven't we had enough demagoguery and deflection? Haven't Trump and his ilk done enough damage already? What damage? Florida has seen a massive surge of people wanting to go there because Florida actually respects the American Constitution and refuses to listen to the federal government. So for all of your crap, regular Americans clearly disagree. Far as deflection goes, what did we learn from this guy in this entire piece other than he's full of shit? His claims about vaccinations were debunked by the CDC itself, for heaven's sake. He did nothing but deflect the border numbers. His own former bosses sounded exactly like Trump on immigration, and his own source makes his COVID claims look minute at best. Matter of fact, I'll debunk it even further. If a virus is found in America before Mexico, but once it spreads in Mexico and you bring the carriers of those viruses into the US, this has nothing to do with the fact it was found in America first, you fucking idiot. It just means you're facilitating a wider spread of it in the US. This is a college professor who wrote this. This is not difficult to debunk. This is easy. All you need is a couple of minutes of research. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I hope that proved useful. That's all for today. Until next time.